In this conversation, Jim and Ryan discussed the importance of mastering your money and the power of behavioral cash flow planning. They highlight the limitations and challenges of traditional budgeting and the benefits of a cash flow plan. The conversation covers various signs that indicate the need for a behavioral cash flow plan, including lack of a fully funded retirement plan, retirement goals based on income replacement rather than projected expenses, and unstable car leasing or loan terms. They also discuss the importance of addressing short-term, revolving debt. In this conversation, Jim and Ryan discuss the importance of financial education and adapting to current financial circumstances. Jim highlights the difference between the experiences of previous generations and the realities of today's financial landscape. Ryan encourages listeners to start the new year with a fresh start.
Ryan, how are you doing on this lovely snowy day in January?
Oh, it's a new beginning for the new year, so it's nice to finally get a little bit of snow. I know my son's been excited because now he finally gets to go snowboarding and create snowmen, so snow people.
Yeah, I'm not all excited because I have to go out there and get rid of it all off the driveway later on today. So,
well,
and
it's a light
I was
dusting,
just saying,
so.
We don't have light dusting here. We got a pretty heavy dump of snow.
Yeah.
And I was just saying to Carol earlier today, like every time I go out there and I clear the snow, especially when it's windy and it's blowing back in my face, there's a lot of not nice things that I say. You know, if I was recording that live, there'd be a lot of beeping. And then I come back inside the house and immediately I'm like, okay, buying a house in South America somewhere because I just can't deal with it. But anyways, today we're talking about it like you said, it is a new beginning, right? January, new year, lots happened last year in 2023. We're hoping for some really good things to happen this year. In terms of the podcast itself, we have some great ideas that we're going to be sharing with people in future podcast episodes. But we're also going to be talking about, some things that are not so new. And one of them we've talked before. And I think it's really important right now for people to hear this. And we're going to talk about mastering your money and the power of behavioral cash flow planning. And I think right now people are going to start opening up their credit card statements from the holidays, and they're gonna feel it and hoping to maybe change their ways, right? In terms of their cash flow. Yeah. So today, I guess we should mention that my name is Jim and your name is Ryan, and we are the hosts of the Money Mindset Mastery podcast. Ryan is still your name, right?
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, it feels like such a long time since we did this, and I had a bit of butterflies coming into today because I'm excited that obviously the new year started off, but it felt like it's been so long since we've done this. So, so let's keep it rolling every few weeks for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel it's kind of like in the old days playing hockey as a goalie. If you didn't play for a few days, you just didn't feel quite right. It took you a while to get back into it. That's how I'm feeling with this episode today. So you're right. Let's just keep that rolling. Wow. Now, the reason why we're talking about this today is actually based on a blog post. The 10 signs you need a behavioral cash flow plan by Stephanie Holmes Winton of Cashflow Inc. And we interviewed Stephanie last year when we launched Cashflow Solutions. So this is an article written by her, or a blog post. And what we will do too is in the description box of the podcast or the YouTube channel, whatever you're looking at, there's going to be a couple pieces we're going to include there as well. So we will have a link to the TVH Cashflow webpage. So it's a good landing page there. We're going to have a questionnaire. It's a new questionnaire that we've launched, which will help you determine if you should be going through a cash flow plan. So before we really didn't have a way of assessing that, but now we actually do have a quick 5-minute assessment that you can go through. So that'll be included. And then also finally, there'll be another 2-pager, which highlights the different reasons why you might want to go through a cash flow plan.
Yep.
So anything else to add to that before we get into the nitty-gritty of the episode?
No, it was a busy holiday season, and obviously with the release of our our cash flow solutions, involved certification. So I was excited, and my brain was full and ready to explode with getting my designation also for. So I'm certified cash flow specialist, getting the designation. So it was exciting because
Congratulations.
thank you. Who knew I could pass with such flying colors? So I get
You did well.
smarter with age, apparently. So
Yeah.
And going through it, obviously, a lot of the things that we've talked about for the last year really wholeheartedly believe in the behaviors of understanding people and how they're spending their money, and really creating new habits, right?
Mhm.
And that's what made it so exciting to go through. It was some of it was a reminder and a lot of great takeaways, and over the course of the year, being able to share some of those tidbits with people, and again, a lot of reflection for myself too, and how we do it, because
Yeah.
every way, not one way is the right way, and that's the important thing. And everybody is different. So, and I was really excited to get it completed and be able to do this podcast to start off the new year, because, as you said, people are going to feel the pinch looking at their credit card statements over the next little bit, and I think it was a great idea to start the year off with understanding, the behaviors behind it, and understanding what is cash flow planning for people, and how different it is from the B word, budgeting, right? And
Yeah.
how we
And I
can,
think what's really important about that too is, when you joined TVH, you talked a lot about helping people with budgeting.
yeah,
And I think, and you can agree or disagree with me, but I think you've learned some new things in terms of it's not just really the budgeting piece, it's the behavior behind the budget that's really important. Would you agree or disagree with that?
yeah, absolutely. And defining what budgeting was for me, and talking with clients, because often a lot of it was more shorter term goals, but really looking at the bigger picture with people.
Mhm.
Really, it's a cash flow problem that people are looking at right now, and this is a great opportunity for people to understand the difference between budgeting and understanding what your cash flow is,
Yep.
and being more aware. And really, that's one of the things that we've kind of promoted along the way and talked a lot about, is our job is to help you become aware and help create strategies for people to get where they're
Mhm.
going, and help them achieve short-term, long-term goals, tackle debt. For a lot of people, it's tackling debt that they're going to be looking at support, and how cash flow solutions can help support that. So
Yeah. And I think we're gonna try to simplify it here because people will ask, well, what's the difference between a behavioral cash flow plan and a budget? And I
mhm,
think the way to simplify it is budgeting is your very restrictive diets,
mhm,
right? It's about taking away
yeah,
and reducing calories and eliminating certain things. So it's very
mhm,
restrictive, and we do know that diets tend to fail 90% of the time because
mhm,
after a while people feel deprived, and sometimes they're even worse off after they went through that stretch of dieting than when they first started. And budgeting seems to be the same thing. We're not saying that budgeting is bad. There are situations where you do want to have a budget and run with a budget.
yeah,
Typically, as you said, they're more short term type of projects or situations
mhm,
where we would say behavioral cash flow planning is more like the lifestyle change.
yeah,
It's about making some behavioral changes in your life to get you back on track. And that's really the difference between the two. So, why don't we talk about the limitations and challenges of traditional budgeting? I think we kind of did,
yeah.
right? Anything else to add to what I shared?
Well, I think a lot of it with the past is leaving the past in the past. You can't change, and that's often what I find when clients is they're so worried about their past behaviors, but really it's about starting to create these new behaviors. So why sit on that? So instead,
Mm,
let's move forward, and really, again, we've kind of said this, understand what your cash flow is, and how you can kind of separate and understand, what we'll talk a lot about is committed versus spendable, right? And
mm,
understanding how that can make a difference in in planning for the future. What I like and what already I've seen with the people that we've met about it is having these short, attainable goals that are exciting for people, right? And almost like little cares of like, this is what I'm doing this for, right? And at the same time, you're creating a great behavior that's going to become a habit that you will continue on. And, a lot of people have talked about, how they can help support their kids and creating those behaviors at a younger age so they don't, as many Canadians are, in debt, in their 20s and 30s and even going into retirement. So,
Okay. Well, let's go through, and I don't know if we're going to get through all of them today, but let's talk about some of the top 10 signs that you need a cash flow plan. And the first one is lack of a fully funded retirement plan. So here's, I guess, one indicator. Now, you and I, Ryan, we help our clients with retirement planning and funding for retirement. I think easier for people who are closer to retirement age to kind of think about it. A little bit more challenging for someone who's 30 years away from retiring. But really, one way to determine if you are not on target, if there is going to be an issue in having enough funds for retirement, is to go through a traditional retirement plan, which we do. Yeah. And then from there, we can see if there are any shortfalls. Yeah. So one sign that you might want to look at a behavioral cash flow plan is if you set out some of these goals for retirement and you're way off track.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when it comes to fully funding a retirement plan, is often people don't know how much they need to save going into retirement, right? And often, many times, many articles say it's less than what you're currently, but a lot of articles have said that you actually spend more in the first few years of retirement. So, those things can go unplanned, and then at the same time, where are we with the environment of the economic world, right? And how are we performing? How are your retirement savings performing during that time? And again, the fund and being able to go through a cash flow plan can really give people a clear understanding where they're actually at. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right. Now the next one too is retirement, and we're kind of guilty of this, right? Retirement goals based on income replacement rather than projected expenses. Right. So whenever we've helped clients through a retirement plan, it has been typically a percentage of current income in retirement. We've made a shift in our thinking now, where it really is based on what are the projected expenses, and let's really go through what those might look like and really identify what expenses go up in retirement and what expenses might drop off in retirement, to your point, right?
Yeah.
The first few years, you might spend a lot more than what you'd expect because you're in your younger retirement years. So maybe you're a traveler. You want to be more active. So you might spend more money that way. So, for people who have focused on a dollar value, a lump sum value to be set aside for retirement, or focused on a percentage of current income, we might want to, shift our approach and focus on what the projected retirement expenses are.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to that?
And just add, the later years, obviously, we're looking at health and things to consider. We all think we're just going to have a wonderful, easy time in retirement, but things come up, unfortunately. So, and it's our job to help understand and prepare you for those things. So enjoy all the travel, but also things come up. So, yeah.
Mobility challenges, right? That's a big one that's been coming up. And it's amazing how many clients that I've worked with for many years, 20 years, who are in retirement and are now reporting how they have fallen and broken a hip, right? Or they've done something and broken something. And it's just part of the aging process. Right now, all of a sudden, when you have mobility challenges, you might require certain medical devices. You might have to change your home, right? If you want to remain in your home. And in order to pay for those expenses, most people, because they haven't planned for it, are tapping into their existing savings that they've set aside for retirement purposes. So, those are some things that some areas that we can assist with as well. But that's something that people don't really think about until it actually happens to them. Another sign that you might want to go through a behavioral cash flow plan is inadequate life insurance coverage. And here's the concerning part. Most people think that they have enough coverage or more than enough coverage. So in their mind, they're walking around thinking, I've got more than enough. But then when you and I go through an actual planning assessment, not behavioral cash planning, but a regular planning, there's a significant shortfall.
Yeah.
So I think really what the step here would be is, if you want to find out first if you have enough insurance coverage, then let's go through an insurance analysis. And if there's a shortfall, let's work through the steps of meeting that shortfall. And if you're looking to find how to fund that shortfall, then that's where behavioral cash flow planning can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Right? Any other points to that?
No, again, a thing is to consider for retirement and in life insurance too is, what and how do you want your estate, what you want to leave as to family members, a charity perhaps. It's all things to consider, and how much of the tax bill do you want to leave to the next generation when it comes to all the hard work that you've done to accumulate this wealth. So life insurance can be a way to help protect some of that for you. So
yeah, but even from a planning point of view, like, most people think of, my mortgage is covered, so everything is fine, right? What they don't really consider is things like, what if the family loses that source of income that they were relying on? How is that going to be replaced, right? That's something that a lot of people don't think about. What about setting aside funds for educational planning in the event of passing away early? Because your expectation as an individual is you're going to be funding and accumulating those retirement or educational accounts. But if you prematurely pass away, they're no longer being funded. So how is that going to be covered? Emergency expenses, things of that nature, right? So these are things that people don't really think about until they sit down with you and I, and then we put it in front of them and say, have you thought about this? How's this going to be dealt with? How's this going to be addressed? And then, the landscape changes and the thought process changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially as, men tend to unfortunately die sooner than women do. So
although that gap's narrowing.
Yeah. But it's still, women are going to be the ones holding essentially the wealth, and also at the same time, are they going to understand the impact that they may have on themselves and their families through that? So it's just all things that you don't think about unless you go through analysis and cash flow planning. So
yeah. Now the next one, admittedly, you and I have different, I guess, feelings behind it. Unstable car leasing or loan terms when purchasing a car. And I have to say, I mean, I'm guilty. Like, I don't really make good decisions when it comes to cars because I've always been a car lover.
Yeah.
But that's where you come in, because you can kind of get me back in line and help me with getting clients in line when it comes to making decisions on car leasing or long-term loans. But that's, again, another area that we can look at to see if, you require a behavioral cash flow plan.
Yeah, just understanding, and we'll be doing a podcast later on in the year about this too. It's just really understanding the terms when it comes to cars and car leasing and whether to loan. And again, we have some very practical ways to figure out what's best for each individual and what makes most sense. So, yeah.
Now, a lot of people are carrying debt. A lot of people are carrying short-term revolving debt. This isn't new, but I think there's been more of that recently because of the economy and some of the challenges that we've been facing there. Now, I don't think anyone really has a plan in terms of how to deal with the debt. There's really a lot of uncertainty about becoming debt-free and how that's going to happen. So if you are someone who's sitting there with credit card debt, line of credit debt, a lot of short-term revolving debt, and you're trying to figure out how am I going to pay this off, because a lot of people will throw chunks of money towards that debt, but they
Yeah.
don't really put a dent in those balances. So if you're carrying that type of debt, I think this is really a really good indicator that you should be speaking with Ryan and I to go through behavioral cash flow plan to put a strategy in place on eliminating that debt once and for all. It's not going to happen overnight, right? But if we put a plan in place and we keep you on track, you will end up addressing that debt and getting rid of it.
Yeah. And I find with people when it comes to being in debt is understanding the types of debt that they have. And as you said, creating different strategies to tackle debt in different ways, right? Because it can be a forever endless that you're always constantly paying down this debt, but nothing's really happening, right? So is talking to somebody about that debt and that it's okay to talk about the debt because especially as Canadians, we have some of the highest debt ratios in most countries. So it's for us to help educate and help create a strategy and a plan to tackle it. So a lot of people don't realize they're not the only ones out there, and we all carry debt in some way or form. It's just about having the plan to do so and tackle it. So
Sure.
I think like the next one obviously is, as part of the 10 signs is, people aren't maximizing the TFSA and the abilities to take advantage of the room that they have, not realizing what room they do have, and how it's tax-free. The earnings within that are tax-free, hence the name of the account. So taking advantage of tax-free savings account, also known as a TFSA, is a great way to really make a little bit more money without the government taking away from all the hard-earned money that you've been making. So,
and also understanding, there are some investments or financial instruments that are more efficient in a TFSA than outside of a TFSA. So, for example, for people who have GICs or daily interest accounts and they're earning 5 or 6%, that's fully taxable outside of a TFSA. So if you don't have a TFSA and you're carrying some of those interest-bearing investments, then move those into the TFSA. That way you've sheltered all of that income. Outside of the TFSA, you might want to hold more dividend or capital gains types of investment strategies because they're a little more efficient outside of a TFSA. You can still hold them in TFSA, but they're a little more efficient outside of it than, for example, the GIC. So those are some of the things that we would look at. So even from a tax efficiency point of view, that's a way that we can recapture some leakage, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're earning 5% and you're at a 40% tax bracket, for example, you're almost losing half of that return of tax. So that's an area that we can definitely address.
Yeah.
Now, the next one that's a sign is if you're approaching retirement with dependence on investable assets. So that means basically just having investment portfolios and nothing else to fund your retirement. Nothing that's guaranteed, nothing that you can count on. It's just all investment accounts, investable assets. So that's another thing, again, that we should probably be looking at from a cash flow point of view to make sure that you have the proper instruments in place where there are some consistent guarantee sources of income that you can count on no matter what.
Yeah.
So this is another reason why you might want to consider going through a behavioral cash flow plan.
Yeah. So one of the other ones is the inability to spend frivolously through.
I love this one.
Spending on travel or cars, and again, the cash flow allows you to create those goals and allow you to spend in a way that is able to fit within your means, and at the same time have a goal to make sure that you're able to spend that hard-earned money without feeling bad, because that's often what happens with people is kind of like a diet is you do such a good job at budgeting, but then you spend or in dieting terms, you end up overeating and gorging, right? So we want to make sure that people have attainable goals throughout it that allows them to feel that that they're making good use of the money that they spent so long and hard working for. So,
I mean, some people spend frivolously, but they're not spending money; they're spending credit,
yeah,
right? So, in terms of the plan that we use, is let's not do that anymore,
mm-hmm.
and let's provide you with some umbrella balance of cash that you know that if at the end of the week you've allocated to whatever expenses we've talked about and you happen to have money left over, enjoy it. We're not sitting there saying, you have to roll that into the next week, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you haven't spent. We're saying enjoy it, have fun with it, and you won't feel guilty because you're not using credit
Yeah,
to spend frivolously. So that's really where we're getting at with
yeah,
with that point. So here's another one: withdrawing from or halting contributions to long-term investments. And I got to
yeah,
say, a lot of this has been happening in the last 12 months.
mm-hmm.
People who have stopped their contributions because they're trying to find money to allocate in, covering their debts or even just their day-to-day expenses,
Yeah,
or they're cashing out or drawing from their accounts that's intended to be there for
mm-hmm.
retirement purposes. And the power of compounding, you disturb that or disrupt that, even for 1 year, there's a
Yeah,
significant impact, right, long
yeah.
term.
And
And so
there's
if you're finding that's something you're doing, then that's another reason why you might want to consider a cash flow plan.
and one of the biggest things too is that you're stopping that behavior and that habit of constantly putting a money aside for
Mm,
yourself and for the future. So, and it is very hard to get back on track. Uh,
yeah.
I know there's articles that talk about the percentage points of people that actually, once they halt, how long it takes for them to get back, or that they even start doing it at all. So you want to keep that and maintain that. Sometimes it's slowly reducing a little bit at times, but really, as much as possible, we want to make sure that you're committing to this and your longer term goals through understanding your cash flow. So yeah,
Yeah.
keep the behavior. That's part of the behavior, and maintaining that habit. So, and I think obviously the last one is the absence of the cash flow plan as a whole, right? So, a sign that if you don't understand where your money is going, if you don't understand what the retirement or a longer term plan goal is,
Mm,
or even a shorter term plan of where you're getting it, instead of just strictly using credit,
yeah.
I think it's obviously a great sign. So
But what I want to do is I actually want to shine a spotlight on this one
yeah,
because I think most people might read this or hear us saying, oh, well, I don't have a cash flow plan, so therefore I should have a cash flow plan. I think really what the point we're trying to make here is chances are that if you have worked with a banker or an investment manager or a financial professional, they haven't gone through a cash flow plan with you. They haven't even talked about cash flow in depth,
yeah,
right? They might have talked to you a little bit about budgeting, but chances
investments,
are exactly investments, and that's what they're focusing on is the investment piece or the insurance or whatever that might be. There's a good chance that they did not ask you about your cash flow or walk you through a behavioral cash flow plan. Now, they might have looked at your cash flow in terms of you provided them with your income and expenses, and they might have said, "Hey, look, you still have an extra $500 a month of available cash, so we're going to redirect that into an investment account," for
yeah,
example. But that's not changing behavior. That's not
yeah,
really trying to identify if you're spending properly. So it's the reason why I wanted to spotlight a little bit on that point. Is this is something we're talking about with our clients, right? Every
yeah,
client.
and yeah, and there's lots of articles too that talk about this. Is that
Mhm.
people want to talk about their cash flow and nobody's talking about it. Hence why
Mhm.
it was important for us to to learn more, to get certified, to understand more about cash flow, because this is the biggest thing that is often weighing on people's minds. It isn't
Mhm.
their investments, and yes, it's important to know whether you're up or down and what your return is, but it means nothing if at the end of the day you have this large credit debt that you need to potentially pay off,
Yep.
and how you can kind of rein some of those things in without feeling hard on yourself, and
Mm.
creating a plan that you can see, a plan that can be identified so you can be aware of where you're going and where your starting point and where your end goal will be. And again, every person is different as far as when we go through this in a short period of time.
Mm.
I haven't seen two cash flow plans that are the exact same, because
Yeah.
every person is unique. And when you go to many institutions, their only goal is, what is the one thing I'm going to invest you in today, right?
Yeah.
It's what's the Slurpee flavor of the month, essentially, and putting us into that, putting people into that, and not asking some more questions, to understand more of where you're coming from and what really makes you not sleep at night. So
Yeah. Now, the benefit of a cash flow plan, and again, I know we keep repeating ourselves here, but it's really important to understand it's really designed around human behavior
mhm.
and making decisions around human behavior or identifying what those behaviors tend to be, and making adjustments to some of those behaviors.
Mhm.
And some of it is, is it habitual? Yeah, there's some habits that we try to help to establish. There's some automation that we help our clients with. Most importantly, when you do, going back to the dieting, when you make lifestyle changes, a lot of people are working with professionals. They're working with a nutritionist or a personal trainer.
Yeah.
For this to work, you have to work with a certified cash flow specialist. So part of what we do is we coach you along the way. It's not just here are the things you need to do and we leave you with it,
Yeah.
right? It's the ongoing coaching because people they will veer off a little bit. It happens. We're all human. This is again going back to human behavior,
Yeah.
and we recognize that and understand that. So a big part of the plan itself is having that coach to coach you along the way. So I think that's really important to highlight.
Yeah. 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 And helping you understand how we can help free up funds for you by going through this
Mm.
system, right?
Yep.
And help you attain your financial goals. I said it before, and it's often the simplest way is understanding your committed expenses versus your spendable expenses, and not biting off too much. As we say, slow and steady wins the race. So we're not going to bombard people with a bunch of information that's going to feel overwhelming, but we're going to be there to help support along the way, and really establish, what is that short term goal that's going to get you excited to make sure, you know, for the next 6 or 18 months, whatever that short term goal is, to make sure that we're able to help support that need for you to achieve it, right? And at the same time, tackling some of those other things like creating an
Mm.
emergency savings, and some more longer term goals, and tackling some debt along the way. Really, that's one of the biggest things that I found as a difference between budgeting versus cash flow planning is it was really about the excitement of actually achieving these goals, and in a short
Yeah.
period of time, being able to achieve them, even over the holiday season, going through this, myself being able to achieve like a very small short-term goal that I set myself up for, and seeing that for myself, I'm on track. And mine is short-term goal. Let's do a travel, right?
Yeah.
So already that Jim and I've already said from the beginning is we're doing the same things. We're actually practicing what we preach. We're actually doing and being part of these things to
Mm.
ourselves. So otherwise, if it didn't work, then we wouldn't be doing it ourselves, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely. So let's talk about then some challenges and misconceptions about behavioral cash flow planning. I think the first one, and I just don't want people to think that this is the golden goose that's going to solve all your problems.
yeah,
There are situations that we come across, and we have, where it's like there's just literally there's nothing we could do. It is you're going to have to make some really difficult decisions, because behavior is one thing, but even if we adjust the behavior, there's just simply nothing we can do. So a person could be so financially far gone that if we can't help you after we've gone through the process, it typically means, again, like you're going to have to go through some form of not necessarily bankruptcy, but there's some serious things you're going to have to consider doing.
Yeah.
So this isn't, again, I don't want people to think, oh, we're going to go through this and all our problems are solved. No. There are situations where we just can't help people. Now, what does help them is the educational components, the 12 modules that we offer. But yeah, it's not necessarily going to assist everyone, but I can say we can help most people before they get to the point of no return.
Yeah. And if you really want to make the change, then yes, you'll go through the educational pieces and continue, even if, again, this is unusual for somebody talking about something is, we're here telling you, it's not for everybody. But we know that we can continue to support the journey for you to get you there through these and give you the tools that it will take for you to make sure that you can achieve your goals. But, as you just said, we're not going to feed you anything that's not true. And the truth is, we run into people that unfortunately have to make some big changes. And sometimes it takes that little push from somebody to say, hey, some big changes need to happen, but here's at least some tools for you to consider to help work you towards that. So that's what I enjoy about this, is that it's hard because we've been creating a habit for years, whether it's the lack of education through our own education schooling system that's kind of created this habit. And we want people to help. We want to help people break this habit and support them in the right way. So,
yeah, I like that. It is a habit. One thing that we've identified with some clients who we've walked through this process is, we've asked them, do you believe that this is a pattern? Because many people right now are, again, coming to us because of recent events. And, the question that we'll ask them, are you in this financial situation because it's a situational reason behind it, meaning loss of a job, because of the increase in expenses, the interest costs, or if you really think about it, is this a pattern? And it's amazing how when people really think about it, they will admit and say, you know what, this seems to be a pattern of ours. I can go back over the last 15, 20 years and see how, we get in ourselves in this trouble and then, try to figure out a way out. And then we swear we'll never do it again. And then 5 years later, we creep up and we're back into it again. So this is where it's important to go through this behavioral cash flow program, because we can identify what those patterns are and break those patterns and really establish some good habits moving forward. So they don't have to do this again. Yeah.
And then we also have a money mindset quiz too, that helps you understand a little bit about yourself. And I've joked about this before. It's like the 5 love languages quiz, something you can do with you and your partner to understand each other's way of thinking when it comes to money. And the more you understand yourself, the better off you are at helping yourself and getting the help. And we're here to support and coach people with that. So,
yeah, we have lots of tools that we offer our clients with the program. And we have the money mindset quiz, as you mentioned. We have the ebook, the money mindset ebook. We also have the TVH financial ebook that we just launched as well, that talks about philosophy of money. So that's something that's available to our clients. Part of the behavioral cash flow plan, they do have access to Winton. Winton will help them stay on track. It basically reminds them of what amounts they're free to spend without any guilt per week. and try to stay within that amount as well. So lots of tools. We have the retirement cash flow quiz as well. It's more for retirement preparation to help you determine if you are actually, in fact, prepared to retire financially speaking. And again, just recently we launched the cash flow assessment. So really, that's another quiz that will help you to determine should you have a need for a behavioral cash flow plan. So lots of tools that are available through our program. And in addition to that, as we mentioned before, 12 educational modules.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously easy listening of our odd podcasts along the way, and the coaching sessions that we're going to be offering for people, right? So
yeah, I think the coaching is going to be very important for a lot of people because it helps, again, keep them on track. And they're accountable.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing too, is they feel they're accountable to their cash flow coach.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one, is now we're also establishing accountability.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have another episode planned yet, so I can't tease the next episode. But we are, again, working on a lot of different topics that we're going to share out there. So there's a couple of ways that really, you can listen to us through our YouTube channel. We're sending out shorts now. We just recently launched a TikTok channel, but there's no dancing. Ryan and I aren't dancing in those, not yet, at least. Obviously, we have the podcast, right? You can even go to our website. There's a couple websites, tvhfinancial.ca. That's for the financial services side of things. But also there's tvhcashflow.ca. So that's for the cash flow piece. So yeah, I just really encourage people to just take a look. You don't know what you don't know. That's something that someone mentioned to me a long time ago, and it's really helped me because I keep my mind open to new things because again, you don't know what you don't know. So it doesn't cost you anything to complete the quiz, either the assessment or the money mindset quiz. So it's just something I encourage people to do.
Yeah. And I think, if this is the right step for you, often you try to ask people, do you feel like you're earning a good income and it's, you're not getting ahead in life when it comes to the amount of money that you're making? Do you feel like your debt and spending is left out of your financial plan when you're talking with your advisor? A good idea to contact us and talk about the cash flow. And would you just like a simple way to get your finances on track and get more out of your money and more out of the things that you want to do without having to worry? If you're answering yes to some of these, I think it's a good idea just to, email or call or find a way to connect with us to just start a conversation and see where it goes. And if it feels good to you, then like a nice dress or a nice suit, put it on and take it out for a spin and wear it a little bit. So, and see where it goes from there. And, if we can help you, we're going to be here to help support, coach, and help give you the tools that you can share with, your kids or your family members to make sure that they too are potentially getting on track with their cash flow. So,
yeah, the benefit's generational.
Yep.
Right. We've learned how to handle our money from our parents. And, if I use that my own personal experience, my parents were horrible with money. They came from Italy. Things were different back then. And also a lot of what they learned was based on the situation that they were growing up with at the time. Right. For me, I'm fortunate that I started working at the bank at a very young age because had I learned what they were teaching me, I think I would be in a very different financial situation today had I not, gone into the banking industry and really learned about money and investing throughout the years and, cash flow planning and all these things. So parents are great, but, in terms of their experiences, but their experiences are very different from your experiences because times are different.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind is you're going to have to deal with your finances based on the circumstances today, not based on experiences of 20, 30 years ago from someone else, right? Using the early 80s as a perfect example, our parents went through 22% mortgages and 24% mortgages. So their thought process on paying down mortgage was very different than today, even with our current rates of 6.5% compared to what they were dealing with. Very different. Anything else to add to that, Ryan, before we shut things down?
No, I don't. Welcome to the new year. Great idea to have another new fresh start, and through cash flow planning or just reaching out and starting the conversation, finding out how we do things a little bit differently than what you're probably used to and how it can really help you.
Awesome. Well, then, until the next time, hopefully in a couple of weeks, we will see you then. Take care.
Take care.
Why is it me? Why am I God? I still buy low, still sell